Hello, this is Derek Smalls of Spinal Tap, and whenever I'm in your town, I spice up my day by listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Turn it up!
Welcome to Icon Fetch, the web's premier music interview show. Now, here's your host, Tony Peters.
Welcome to Icon Fetch. I am Tony Peters. Now, if you trace the roots of power pop, in the 70s, you had the Raspberries and Badfinger and Big Star. And later in the 1990s, you had bands like Matthew Sweet's, Weezer, and the Gin Blossoms that were able to have commercial success. But sandwiched in there in the middle in the 80s, it was kind of all about funny hair and keyboards, and so it was kind of hard going for the power pop guys. Now, there were bands like North Carolina's The DBs that released a string of hook-laden albums that gained only a cult following but are now considered classics.
I'm living a lie. I'm just living a lie.
Now, singer-guitarist Peter Holsapple not only was a member of the DBs, he also was in the alternative supergroup the Continental Drifters and was a touring member of both R.E.M. and Hootie the Blowfish during their peak years. Holsapple has just issued a vinyl 45, his first new solo outing in 20 years, called Don't Mention the War. Talk about it, we welcome in Peter Holsapple. Peter, good to talk to you, man.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You got it, man. And the first place to start is, well, I mean, you know, the last thing we heard from you, you guys reconfigured the DBs in 2012, but I can't believe I'm even saying this, but that's been 5 years ago. So it's pretty crazy.
I'm with you there. Somebody pointed out that Stands for Decibels, the first DBs record, came out 36 years ago.
Oh, man.
December 30th. And I'm a realist, you know, but it still is a kind of a wake-up call.
A wake-up call, yeah.
So that's part of the deal. You know, I'm sensing my age. I'm sensing the fact that I'm still able and capable of writing a good song, and I just thought, let's try it again, shall we? The stakes are different now. The methodology of delivery is completely different now. People's tastes have changed, and all I can do is sort of offer up, here's a couple of songs, and I'm back, and what do you think? So hopefully it's going to work out. So far, so good.
Right. Now, these songs actually have roots in something else. You took part in this Radio Free Song Club. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, I don't want to put it in past tense because I keep hearing rumblings every few months that it is still around and a happening proposition. But for several years, I was one of the charter members of Radio Free Song Club, which was organized by songwriter, bookstore owner Kate Jacobs from Hoboken, and Nicholas Hill, who is a DJ for WFMU and has provided rock services for many artists like Victoria Williams over the years. And Dave Schramm is the music director for the show. And every month or so, about a dozen songwriters, including people like Peter Bugbad and Victoria Williams and Amy Rigby and Reckless Eric. There's just a trove of them, and we'd all contribute a new song, and it could be in any sort of form. And there was no pressure, but I took it as a serious responsibility, and I don't think I missed an episode, and I got up to about 33. And yes, these songs originally emanated from that. They were written in a time crunch to be delivered by a certain date, and so if you go to the website for Radio Free Song Club, you can pull up the demo versions of these songs and see how they've evolved into what they are on the record.
Nice. And I mean, I think it's, as a songwriter, it's probably a good thing to have a deadline of some kind. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, there were times in the DBs where you're signed to a record label and the record label's going, okay, when are we going to get this record? When are we going to get this record? You know, but at the same time, now, like you said, the stakes are different, the times are different, and here you are capable of writing songs. This is a good thing to kind of shoot for.
Yes, and I will say also, not to diss them, but my songwriting schedule went to a very lazy rate in the Continental Drifters because I was in a group of so many awesome writers. It didn't feel nearly as necessary to just sort of pound them out. Everybody was writing good songs in that band, so it just contributed to my natural lazy form of getting things done. But, you know, I ended up with a lot of really good songs and some clunkers, I won't lie. But yeah, it's interesting to have a deadline. Or you know, if somebody says, write a song about something, and you're like, I don't know if I can do that. You know, it's not on demand. So you learn a lot of different things with these latter day experiences like Radio Free Song Club, like how to work opposite of what your normal procedure would be.
Right. So if we talk about the side A of this, Don't Mention the War.
So don't mention the war. Would you wanna go and do that for?
This is a pretty vivid account of somebody's uncle that he was a favorite uncle, and you sort of document drink beer with the dad and all this kind of stuff, and then he comes home from the war and he's a different guy. Is this where did the genesis for this? Is this a personal recollection? Is this something you saw from somebody else, or just kind of a composite of a lot of things?
Well, it's a composite. First, let's get this out of the way. The title did indeed come from the Faulty Towers episode.
Okay.
But it just happened to be mentioned, and at the point that it got mentioned, somehow or other, the lyrics started coming out more the way they did, and certainly nothing humorous about this song. So I figure it's good to get this part of it out of the way and explain that that's a nominal, at best, connection. But the words, I read a lot about people returning from various wars over the history of mankind and what it seems to do to people. And I first started trying to write this from the perspective of Lonnie, the guy that's being observed in the record by his nephew. And I wrote a whole set of lyrics like that. It didn't sound right. And I'm not sure how the nephew got involved, but I started taking it from that perspective, and all the words came part and parcel together the way they are now. So, songwriting for me is a combination of conscious and unconscious things that happen. I listen to the voices in my head.
There you go.
I guess it's the best way of
Sure.
saying it without sounding too weird. But I hear the sounds that the voice makes when the song is being written from the music up. Shapes of words will appear from that, which will also direct the line of what the lyrics are going to be about. So it's a mad confusion up in my head, but when it sorts itself out, like Don't Mention the War, it's well worth it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you have some very vivid lyrics here. I mean, when you talk about, it gives off a smell that's like old rotten meat. It's like, woo, man.
Good. If that hit you, good.
Right.
That's
what you're aiming for.
There's a passive listening experience, and then there's an active one. And I think if you if you poke a little bit with lines like that, you get a more active listening experience.
Absolutely.
And I like that. I've never felt like I'm the deepest lyric writer in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like to hit it out of the park once in a while, and I think this song really is a nice, succinct picture of a guy. Have you seen the video for it?
I have, and I was going to ask you about the video because that's really cool. You can you can go to your website and see the link there, or you just go to YouTube. Now, this was directed by Dan Andrews, is that right?
Yes, he's a local guy here, and he and Mike Allen provided some of the found footage in there, but Dan put it all together, and my live involvement was minimal at best. I am indeed playing the guitars in there, but you don't see me necessarily, and because it's not important to see me. But it's very moving. I think he really captured the song, what I was trying to get across with the music, and I also think that he somehow took it to another dimension, if you will, in that I have now heard from a couple of my friends who are therapists and psychiatrists who have said that they felt that the video in particular nailed the experience for both Lonnie and his nephew. So once again, that's, put that up against my 14-cent Spotify royalty check.
Right.
Boy, I'll take this in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's tough with a video because videos can sometimes fall flat if it's trying too hard to mimic the words. But,
yes.
But this actually nails it. I mean, it's eloquent, which is hard to do, I think, in a music video kind of form. So
I agree, and it's a literal reading also, which I think because of the lyrics, it sort of has to be effective. You could get all, impressionistic about it if you needed to, but I think Dan's approach of just, kind of gauzy and kind of a, I think I've referred to this before as almost like a Hogwarts picture, that people are moving around in the frame, but it's ostensibly a still picture, and I that's sort of, maybe that's too Willie Nelson. Still moving to me, I mean, it's just an interesting reading of the lyrics. I think he really nailed that.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
This.
Absolutely. And, I did notice a part of the video where he zooms in on some vinyl LPs. I see, like, Neil Young and Johnny Cash and Velvet Underground kind of thing. And was that an idea of his or yours or what?
Yes, that was his idea, as were the choices of the records.
Nice. Okay. All right. Cool. That was that's interesting stuff. Again, as it goes by kind of quickly, you have to, like, hit the pause button and go, hey, look at that,
Oh, yes.
So tell me about the arrangement of this record, because you got tuba on it, which kind of gives it an otherworldly kind of, like, it almost reminiscent of like a military marching band kind of thing or something. When you wrote the song, did you have that arrangement in mind initially, or did it come later?
We, being Mark Simonson, James Wallace, and I talked about the songs on the single, and we talked about this one, and we sort of did want to evoke that low, somber brass of a military brass ensemble without overstating it, and it just felt like the range that Mark Dahman brought in the tuba was a really good place for it. It sort of did a little counterpoint with the bass and the left hand of the piano and the organ and what have you, and that was really good. And he cut a couple of tracks of it, and we put it together. And I think it, along with the sort of marching drums that are also in there. There's a drum section of muffled drums that pops up periodically. They're sort of obvious attempts at evoking a military situation, but not necessarily, the war overseas, just a war. It's sort of almost more civil war in a way. So, I don't know. It's I'm mixing metaphors like cocktails.
That's all right. That's all right. So, I mean, if we flip the record over and we talk about Cinderella style,
True Cinderella style, cutting out patterns in the dark of night, and it's still not right. And scattered far and wide as the radio plays Memphis Underground.
that one I think is a little harder to get. I mean, the lyrics seem to be kind of a little more abstract or whatever. Where did the inspiration behind that one come from?
Well, if Don't Mention the War is a Harry Potter type picture with people moving in, Cinderella style, I would say, is more of a strict portrait of a room with a person in it that you kind of can see and kind of don't. And if there was any sort of activity in the room, it would be the cigarette smoke rising, possibly, or a hanger dangling. That's kind of what I was trying to convey with that. I am around a person in my home who sews and does a lot of needlework. And I'm fascinated by the meditative quality to it. And I sort of wanted to bring that into the song, along with the feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome and things like that, and a little darkness to the room. I think I got that across. Like I say, it is more of a static portrait of a situation. I'm not sure that the seamstress in my home is the absolute inspiration for it, but I would say that her sewing room very possibly could
Right.
be.
Okay.
So,
Nice. Now you are joined on that track. You've got some help on there too. Why don't you tell me about the person playing flute?
And a worn-out flannel like you've never seen. And everything in between.
oh yeah, Skylar Gudash, who is a local singer here in the Triangle. She came, and I didn't realize that she played flute until Mark and James said, there's a line in there about Memphis Underground that we sort of underlined with the flute, which made sense. But there's also the rising stuff in the choruses, and they said, well, Skylar can play flute. And I was like, I did not know this. Let us employ her.
Right.
And so she came over and she cut a couple of flute parts again, and we try to get everybody's money's worth. We're doing a couple of different tracks out of everybody.
Right.
You never know. You can use them together. You can use them apart. It doesn't hurt to have them around. That's something I've certainly learned from working with Chris and Mitch over the years. At least have the parts to draw from. So she came and did that. She is great. She actually has, back in an earlier rendering of herself, she babysat for my kids.
Nice.
But she's an extremely talented singer and songwriter. She put out a record on Daniel 13 Records a year or so ago. That's just beautiful. It's Chris produced it. It's simple, effective arrangements of beautifully rendered songs. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Nice. Now,
so I'm very happy to have had her. Her reputation speaks for itself. So
Sure.
I'm glad she got to play on the record.
Now, it's interesting. If you go to peterholsapple.com, the first thing you see right now is your record company crew working heartily on stuffing Daddy's records and not doing homework kind of things.
Well, you gotta get the labor where you can. It keeps them off the streets.
Right. Well, I mean, you did
out of the bars.
Yeah, out of the bars, out of troubles. But I guess this has been kind of an arduous task of self-releasing your first record, kind of thing.
Well, I'm having every indication as to why I've never done this on my own before. I seem to be sort of vaguely inept at the business aspects of things. Calling me for artistic, I can handle that. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts of selling stuff, it's a little harder for me for some reason or other. I don't have that kind of disciplined mind. But I've enjoyed the process. I am looking at making a record later this year to come out, a full-on album against my better judgment. That's not the name of it. That's my feelings.
That's your feelings.
I just don't know anymore. What do people release? People release tracks. People release EPs almost, singles. It seems to be that, I think if you're going to do an album, you really better have a good concept for it to make it sort of special. Otherwise, it just seems like it's a collection of singles,
right.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. But
no.
I think that, for me, putting out the single was also an exercise in seeing if my music might be better digested a track or two at a time rather than throwing out albums worth of stuff where, I think over the years I've gotten to do some really great records, and I think that a lot of the songs on them get lost, because there's only so much time people have to listen.
Right.
So maybe you have a better shot at it if they're listening to a single.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. You've got the 45 for sale, but if you turn the 45, tip it a little bit, you get a little download card, which is cool. And I actually did that myself just to check it out, and it was quick and painless. And then you get the MP. Oh, it actually wasn't MP3s; it was WAV files, which I was quite happy about too. So.
Good. Yeah, I had to come up with, do I want to do MP3 or WAV? And I thought, let's try to get the best quality of what we're doing. The time we spent recording and mixing the song and then getting it mastered by Brent Lambert over at the kitchen, let's give people the opportunity to get the best version of it they can.
Right.
And they can certainly dump it into iTunes and make an MP3 copy of it if it's eaten too much valuable
exactly.
hard drive.
Right. Exactly.
But at least give people the opportunity. I mean, that's the biggest issue I always hear about fidelity is listenership. Everybody's listening on computer speakers to MP3s, and that's really harsh.
Yeah.
It's a harsh way to listen. If you can afford yourself a little better fidelity, by all means, grab it.
Yeah. Isn't it kind of weird how video, we want like the super high definition video, right? Everybody's getting that. But when it comes to audio, we're squishing the audio on crappy little earbuds. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, also, Chris Samey has always held that the most lagging technology of anything is speakers. They're still basically the same thing that they've always been, which is a paper cone, and a magnetic driver. And until somebody is able to kind of make that situation a more streamlined listening thing, we're going to be kind of stuck in the, high button shoes of audio.
Right.
So yes, and the advent of MP3s technology, while making everything free for everybody, which also has its blessings and curses.
Sure.
The sacrifice of sound is very sad.
It is very sad. Yeah, and I think people don't even realize that they're missing it. That's one of the other things. So it's like until you actually,
true.
Until you A/B it. Yeah.
They don't know any better. Also, everybody's doing, and I'm guilty of this. Everybody's guilty of doing DIY records, and we all slather a lot of compression on things, and it's a different audio world out there, and lo-fi is to be celebrated, and it is. One of my very favorite records is just massively, purposefully lo-fi. If you've ever heard the Max Indian record from down here, it's just great stuff. But it's a dense listening experience that I don't even know if wave files would help.
Right.
It's hard to tell. I long for the day of the vinyl copy, and it ought to be really intriguing. Then it ought to stand up against the Cramps' first record or something.
Nice.
So,
nice.
All I can do is do my best, and this is coming from the guy who puts out a 6.5-minute single, on a recommended not to have 6.5 minutes
right.
on the side.
Yeah.
Platform. So you get that, and you're probably going to have a slightly lower fi version than the wave file. So the hope is we've given you a trade-off there, that you can get the hi-fi while you get the lo-fi.
Right.
You can decide for yourself what you like. Personal choice.
Right. Well, there's something about the physical thing too, and that's what's missing too. Is to actually hold something in your hand. I mean, you've got it's obviously
got a spine on the sleeve.
Right. Exactly.
I've never had a single with a spine.
How cool is that? Right. Right.
It's really amazing. I would have done more with it if I thought about it.
Right.
But yeah, I like the hand holding of the product. I also like the idea that someone could throw it onto their home jukebox.
Right.
Yeah, I have a very close friend in New York that kind of inspired it because he's got a jukebox. That's why it's got the big hole.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've got one here, and you can't play the little holes. They're much harder. If you get an import from the UK, those have got the little holes on it. You can't do it. You got to get some kind of a cutting tool, and who wants to do that? I'm not into that. So.
I remember people used to have to go, I think, to Bleecker Bob's in New York to get their British import 45s big hold.
Right.
When I lived up there, and it is. I think it was Bleecker Bob's, but I'm not absolutely positive. But some downtown record store did offer that service.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's so back to this. So you're talking about a full length in 2017. Are we holding you to that? You've got that kind of as a deadline kind of thing.
That's what I'm working toward. Let's leave it at that. I'm my life is that of a husband and father and a stay-at-home work guy. So I have to. I don't have the luxurious tour bus laden, enforced recreational life of a rock musician on tour.
Right. Well,
so I take my time where I can find it, and so yeah, I would like to get a record out this year, a full record. I have an idea of what it's going to be thematically, and that's another reason why I put these two songs out on a single, because they just didn't really fit into the flow of what I was seeing the record being like. But at the same time, I thought that they were worthy contenders to be appreciated by the public at large. So
nice, yeah.
Hence a single,
right? Hence a single, right? And a vinyl single at that, which is way cool. So. Well, cool. All right. Well, Peter, let's wrap this up here. It's been great talking to you. The new vinyl 45 from Peter Holsapple is called "Don't Mention the War," and probably the best place for people to go would be peterholsapple.com, right?
Well, you can go there. It's going to be sold starting on Friday the 3rd through Big Cartel, if I can drop that as a place to go. I believe it's peterholsapple.bigcartel.net.
So, well, Peter, I appreciate you talking to us, man.
My pleasure. It was good talking to you, and thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the record.
You've been listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Want more great interviews? Head over to iconfetch.com. There, you'll find every interview we've ever done, plus CD reviews, This Day in Music, and a random album of the day. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Who is Tony going to interview next? It could be you. Send what you've got to Tony Peters. Icon Fetch, P.O. Box 292134, Dayton, Ohio, 45429. Or email Tony at host@iconfetch.com. Until next time, this is Joe Kelly. Have a great day.
yeah, I'll work a little while longer at this thing, and if something happens, that's great. I'm happy to be that elder avuncular presence that some kid one day will do a senior project on.
Right,
right. A Winston-Salem musician or something.
Right, exactly.
But I'm perfectly happy with it. Oh, and I'll tell you what else, just to show you how good things are right now. Not only am I booking shows, but I just got a call from Don Dixon to come play on the new Gin Blossoms record. So that rocks for me. I'm a big fan of those guys.
So Don Dixon is working on the new Gin Blossoms record?
Yeah, he's over at the Auditorium with Mitch.
Yay!
So, I don't know if Mitch is involved in it, but it's his studio. So
that's awesome. I love Jesse. I mean, those guys are just great. So that's great news. And I mean, that's still keeping it going, man. Those are Mitch and Don have put their hands on so many great records through the years. So I hopefully will have some good stuff from them too. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So excellent. All right.
Good.
Well, let me let you go. I've got to get back on this survey work that I do.
No, I understand. You got jackets to put in their sleeve or whatever kind of things.
I'm going to leave that for my errant children. So.
Nice. All right. Well, cool. I'll get this edited up and I'll send Carrie Baker a note and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, just let Carrie know that we finished talking and had a good chat.
Absolutely, Peter. I appreciate it, man.
Great talking to you, and thanks for the good questions.
You got it, man. No problem. Take care.
Okay.
Alrighty, bye-bye.